There is something happening right now beneath the surface of everything you can see. Beneath the chair you're sitting in, beneath the floor beneath that, beneath the atoms that make up the molecules that make up the cells of the hand you could hold in front of your face right now. There is a field, not a metaphor, not a spiritual concept borrowed from ancient poetry, a measurable, scientifically documented, physically real field that underlies all of matter, all of energy, all of space, all of time. A field that physicists have named, studied, and in many cases quietly set aside, because what it implies is too destabilizing to integrate into the comfortable story we've been telling about what reality is. It's called the 0 point field. And tonight, something shifts. Not because you'll be asked to believe something, not because you'll be given a system to follow or a practice to perform, but because the moment you genuinely understand what this field is, what it does, and what it means about the nature of the reality you've been living inside, something in the architecture of your perception changes permanently. The veil doesn't just thin, it dissolves, and what you see on the other side of it is not something foreign or strange or distant. It's something you've been immersed in your entire life without knowing it. What you're about to encounter tonight has been hidden in plain sight, not hidden by conspiracy, not concealed by any shadowy institution, hidden by the layer you were looking at. Hidden because the surface of reality is so convincing, so solid-seeming, so well-constructed, that almost no one thinks to ask what's underneath it. Hidden because the explanation you were given in school, in books, in the casual consensus of daily life, was the surface version. The version that stops before it gets to the part that changes everything. Tonight, we don't stop at the surface. Tonight, we go beneath it. And when you come out the other side of this transmission, you will not be the same person who began it. Not because something will be added to you, but because something will be removed. A layer of limitation that was never actually yours. A ceiling that was built from the assumption that what you can see is all there is. A veil, thinner than you ever imagined, that has been standing between you and the full depth of what reality actually is. One night, that's all this takes. Not a year of study, not a decade of practice. One night of listening to what quantum mechanics discovered beneath the surface of matter. One night of understanding what the ancients mapped long before instruments existed to confirm it. One night of letting the truth of the 0 point field land not just in your mind but in your body, your nervous system, your direct experience of being alive. And the rewiring begins. Let's start at the surface. Let's start with what you think you know. You have been told, in one form or another, that reality is made of stuff, solid stuff, matter, things that exist in definite locations, with definite properties, that interact with other things in predictable, mechanical ways. The chair is there. The floor is there. Your body is here. Space is the empty container that everything sits inside. And time is the river that everything moves along. This is the Newtonian picture of reality. It's the picture that built the modern world. It works. It's useful. It predicts where a ball will land when you throw it. It tells you how much force you need to move an object. It lets you build bridges and engines and cities. But it is the thinnest layer of what's actually happening. Peel back that surface, and what you find is not more stuff. What you find is that the stuff itself, the matter you've been treating as solid and fixed and real, is almost entirely empty space threaded through with fields of energy. The atom, which you were probably told is the fundamental building block of matter, is almost completely empty. If you scaled a hydrogen atom up to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be the size of a marble at the center, and the electron would be a speck of dust somewhere in the upper bleachers. The rest is empty, or what appears to be empty, because here's where the surface starts to crack. That space is not empty. That's the first layer beneath the surface. The space that looks empty, the space between atoms, the space between particles, the space that makes up most of what you call matter, is not a vacuum of nothingness. It is seething with energy. It is vibrating at a frequency so fundamental, so baseline, so intrinsic to the fabric of reality itself that it cannot be removed. It cannot be turned off. It is not the absence of energy. It is the ground state of energy, the lowest possible energy state that any quantum system can occupy. And even at that lowest state, energy is still present, still active, still doing something. This is what physicists call zero-point energy, and the field it permeates is the zero-point field. If this is landing for you, here's something I want to share. Have you spent years trying every surface fix, therapy, mindset work, manifestation, habit redesign, and the same patterns keep coming back in different clothes? Every one of those tools is working on belief and behavior. The actual pattern was installed deeper than any of them can reach. Beneath the veil, a quantum map of reality's hidden layers walks through the full 5-layer descent, the surface reality you were handed, the layer where the pattern was actually installed, the physics underneath that, the ancient traditions that mapped the same thing thousands of years ago, and what you actually are at the bottom of all of it. This is the layer that therapy, mindset work, and manifestation could never reach. The longer you keep working the surface, the longer that deeper layer keeps generating the same life. So do this one tonight. It's waiting in the pinned comment below. Now, back to the thread we were following. Let me say that again so it lands at the level it deserves. The space that looks empty to you is not empty. It has never been empty. It is filled with a field of quantum energy that exists at the most fundamental level of physical reality, a level so deep that it persists even at absolute zero temperature, even when every other form of energy has been removed, even in conditions that should produce nothing at all. The nothing is not nothing. The emptiness is not empty. The void is full. This is not philosophy. This is not metaphor. This is what quantum mechanics found beneath the surface of matter. And it should have changed everything about how we understand reality. It didn't. Not publicly, not in the way it was taught in schools or discussed in mainstream conversation. Because most people stopped at the surface explanation. They heard zero-point energy and filed it under interesting physics footnote and moved on. They didn't follow the thread all the way down to what it actually means, to what it implies about the nature of consciousness, of perception, of the relationship between the observer and the observed. to what it implies about what you are and what you're capable of, and why one night of genuinely encountering this field can begin to rewire the reality you're living in. But there's a layer beneath that, and before we go there, before we go to the layer that changes everything, let's make sure the surface layer is completely clear. Because the zero-point field is not a simple concept, and the surface explanation, the one most people encounter and then set aside, is missing the most important part. When physicists first discovered that empty space wasn't actually empty, the initial response was essentially a shrug. Yes, there's residual quantum energy in the vacuum. Yes, it's real and measurable. The Casimir effect, discovered in 1948, demonstrated this directly. Two uncharged metal plates, placed extremely close together in a vacuum, experience a tiny but measurable attractive force. There's nothing between them. No particles, no fields in the classical sense, no mechanism that should be pulling them together, and yet they pull toward each other. Why? Because the zero-point field is more active in the space outside the plates than in the narrow space between them. The field is pushing them together from outside. The nothing is doing something. The vacuum has structure. The emptiness has force. This was confirmed, measured, replicated. It is not controversial in physics. The zero-point field is real. But here's what the surface explanation stops before reaching. Here's the layer that was quietly set aside. If the zero-point field is real, if it permeates all of space, if it underlies all matter and energy, if it is the ground state of reality itself, then what is the relationship between this field and consciousness? What is the relationship between this field and the observer? What happens when awareness, when genuine focused human awareness encounters this field? Does it interact? Does it respond? Does the field that underlies all of physical reality have any relationship to the mind that is trying to understand it? Quantum mechanics has something very specific to say about this. And it is one of the most unsettling, most liberating, most carefully avoided implications in all of modern science. The observer changes what is observed, not metaphorically, physically, measurably, demonstrably. The act of observation, the act of a conscious system directing attention toward a quantum system, changes the behavior of that quantum system. This is the measurement problem. This is the double-slit experiment. This is the collapse of the wave function. And while physicists have been arguing for over a century about what exactly it means, the experimental results are not in dispute. When no one is looking, a quantum particle exists as a wave of probability, spread across multiple potential locations, multiple potential states, in superposition. When someone looks, when measurement occurs, when observation takes place, the wave collapses. The probability resolves. The particle appears in one definite location, with one definite property. The looking changes the looked at. Now, hold that, and let's go deeper. If the zero-point field is the ground state of all matter and energy, and if the act of conscious observation changes the behavior of quantum systems, then what you have is a field that underlies all of physical reality, that is, at its most fundamental level, responsive to awareness, not indifferent to it, not separate from it, responsive to it, entangled with it, shaped by it. This is where the veil lifts. If this transmission is already beginning to dissolve, something in the architecture of how you've been seeing reality, like this video and subscribe so you don't miss where we go next. What you have been calling your reality, the solid, fixed, mechanical world of things happening to you, is not a closed system that you observe from the outside. It is a quantum field that you are in relationship with, a field that responds to the quality of your attention, a field that is, at its deepest layer, not separate from the consciousness that is perceiving it. The surface tells you that you are a thing in a world of things. The depth tells you that you are an awareness in a field of responsive potential, and those are not the same reality. They are not even close to the same reality. But there's a layer beneath that. Because here's what quantum mechanics alone can't fully explain, and what takes us to the next layer down. If the zero-point field is responsive to observation, if it is the ground state from which all physical reality emerges, then the question becomes not just whether it responds to awareness, but how. Through what mechanism? With what kind of intelligence? And this is where the science of the 20th century meets the wisdom of the ancient world. This is where the instruments of physics find themselves pointing at maps that were drawn thousands of years ago by people who had no instruments at all. Because the ancients knew about this field. Not by that name, not in the language of quantum mechanics. But the thing they were pointing at, the ground of being that underlies all manifest reality, the field of pure potential from which all form emerges and to which all form returns, the responsive, intelligent, living substrate of existence. This is not a new discovery. This is the oldest knowledge there is. Hidden in the oldest texts of every tradition that ever looked beneath the surface of the visible world. The Hindu tradition called it Akasha, the primordial substance, the first element, not earth, not water, not fire, not air, but the field that contains and generates all of them. Akasha is described in the Vedas as the substratum of all existence, the medium through which all experience is transmitted, the fabric of reality itself before it takes form. It is said to be everywhere, to record everything, to be the source from which all things arise. The ancient seers didn't discover this through instruments. They discovered it through the practice of directing awareness inward, beneath the surface of sensory experience, beneath thought, beneath the personal self, until they reached the ground, until they reached the field. And what they found there, they encoded in texts that have survived for thousands of years. The Chinese tradition called it Wu Ji, the primordial emptiness that is not empty, the void before yin and yang, before form and formlessness, before any distinction at all. The Tao Te Ching, one of the most widely translated texts in human history, opens with a statement that is, at its core, a description of the zero-point field. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. What Lao Tzu is pointing at is the ground state of reality that exists beneath all named, formed, visible things. the field that cannot be captured in language because it precedes language, the depth beneath the surface of everything. The Hermetic tradition, the tradition that underlies much of Western mysticism, spoke of the all, the infinite mind in which all things exist, the medium through which all things are connected. The Kybalion, a text that synthesizes Hermetic teaching, describes the universe as mental, as existing within, and as an expression of an underlying field of mind. This is not idealism in the philosophical sense. It is a description of the same thing the quantum physicists found. The ground of reality is not inert matter. It is something more like awareness than like stuff. The Kabbalah speaks of Ein Sof, the infinite without end, the limitless ground of being that precedes all manifestation. Before there was light, before there was form, before there was anything that could be named or measured, there was Ein Sof, the field, the ground, the 0 point. And in every one of these traditions, without exception, the same teaching appears. The field is not separate from you. The field is not something you observe from the outside. The field is what you are, at the deepest layer. The surface of you, the body, the personality, the story you tell about yourself, is the outermost layer. Beneath it is the quantum field of biology, the electrical and chemical processes that animate the body. Beneath that is the quantum field of matter itself, the probability waves and entanglements that make up the atoms of your physical form. And beneath that is the 0 point field, the ground state, the field that was there before you were born and will be there after the body dissolves, the field that is, at the deepest layer, what you actually are. This was always there. You just hadn't looked deep enough yet. Now let me show you something. Let me tell you a story. Not a myth, not a fable. A story about a real kind of moment that happens to real people when the veil lifts and the field becomes visible. There was a woman named Mara. She was a scientist, a materials researcher, to be specific. The kind of person who spent her days studying the properties of surfaces, the way materials behave at their outermost layer, the way things look and feel and respond to force. She was, professionally, a student of surfaces, and she was, personally, a person who believed in surfaces, in what could be measured, in what could be seen, in what could be confirmed by instruments and repeated in controlled conditions. Mara was not interested in what she called soft thinking. She had no patience for spirituality, for mysticism, for any framework that couldn't be tested against reality. She had built her entire identity around the precision of the empirical, around the discipline of not believing anything that couldn't be proven. And she was, by most measures, very good at this, very rigorous, very careful, very thorough. And then, in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, in the middle of an ordinary experiment in an ordinary laboratory, something happened. She was working with an electron microscope, studying the surface structure of a new composite material. She had been staring at the same magnified image for hours, and at some point, in the particular kind of exhausted, unfocused state that comes from too many hours of close attention, her mind stopped doing what minds usually do. It stopped analyzing. It stopped comparing. It stopped running the constant background commentary that the trained scientific mind runs automatically. It just stopped. And in that moment of stillness, she noticed something. Not in the microscope, not in the material she was studying, in the space between her eye and the instrument, in the air of the room, in the silence that had always been there beneath the hum of the equipment. She noticed that the space was not empty, that the room was not just a container holding objects, that there was something present in the space itself, something she had no category for, something that felt more real than the surfaces she had been studying all day, more real somehow than the solid material in the microscope, more fundamental, more primary. She sat with it for a long time. She didn't name it. She didn't try to analyze it. She just let it be what it was. And when she finally stood up and walked out of the lab, something had shifted. Not in her beliefs, not in her theories, in her direct experience of the space she was moving through. It felt inhabited, alive, responsive. She spent the next 3 years reading everything she could find about the zero-point field, about vacuum energy, about quantum coherence, about the Akashic field, about the relationship between consciousness and the quantum vacuum. And what she found was not a contradiction of her science. It was a completion of it. A layer beneath the surface that her training had not prepared her to look for, but that her instruments, at the smallest scales, had been detecting all along. The field was not a new discovery. It had been there the whole time. She had just been looking at the surface. And you have been living at the surface of something with infinite depth. Tonight, you began to see beneath it. Now let's go to the layer that most people never reach. The layer that makes the zero-point field not just a fascinating physics concept, but a living, active, transformative presence in the reality you experience every single day. Because here's what the surface explanation of the zero-point field misses. Here's what gets lost when it gets filed under interesting physics footnote. The zero-point field is not just the ground state of matter. It is the ground state of information. And information at the quantum level is not a metaphor. It is physical. It is real. It is the most fundamental thing there is. Pause here for a moment and ask yourself this. Has there been a layer in your own life that suddenly became visible? Something you always sensed was beneath the surface but couldn't name until you were ready to see it? Drop it in the comments. What hidden layer have you recently discovered beneath the surface of your reality? John Archibald Wheeler, one of the most important physicists of the 20th century, the man who coined the term black hole, spent the last decades of his life developing a framework he called it from bit. The idea that the most fundamental layer of physical reality is not matter, not energy, but information. That every particle, every field, every interaction in the universe is, at its deepest level, an information process. That the universe is, at its core, a participatory information system, and that the observer, the conscious system that asks questions and receives answers, is not separate from this system, is integral to it, is, in a very real sense, co-creating it. If the zero-point field is the ground state of all matter and energy, and if matter and energy are, at their deepest layer, information, then the zero-point field is the ground state of information itself. It is the field in which all information exists, from which all information emerges, to which all information returns. It is, in the language of modern physics, what the ancient traditions were calling the Akashic record. The field that holds everything that has ever happened, everything that is happening, everything that could happen, not as a mystical library in the sky, but as a physical property of the quantum vacuum, as a feature of the field that underlies all of reality. Ervin Laszlo, the systems theorist and philosopher of science, spent decades developing a framework he called the Akashic field theory, the idea that the zero-point field is the physical substrate of what the ancient traditions called Akasha, that the field stores and transmits information at a level more fundamental than any classical communication channel, that it is the medium through which what we call intuition, synchronicity, non-local connection, and what mystics have always called direct knowing actually operate, not as supernatural phenomena, as quantum phenomena, as features of the deepest layer of physical reality. This is the layer that changes everything, not just about physics, about you. Because if the zero-point field is the ground state of information, and if your consciousness is in constant interaction with this field, then what you call your thoughts, your intentions, your beliefs, your fears, your desires, these are not just electrochemical events in the tissue of your brain. They are information patterns that are in relationship with the most fundamental field of reality. They are not contained inside your skull. They are not private. They are not isolated. They are ripples in the field, disturbances in the quantum vacuum, patterns of information that interact with the ground state of all existence, and the ground state responds. This is not mysticism. This is the logical extension of what quantum mechanics found beneath the surface of matter. If observation changes the quantum system being observed, and if the zero-point field is the ground state of all quantum systems, then the quality of your awareness, the depth of your attention, the coherence of your intention, these are not irrelevant to the field. They are not separate from it. They are in active relationship with it. The field that underlies your reality is listening, not with ears, not with a personality, but with the fundamental responsiveness of quantum information to the awareness that encounters it. The surface tells you that your thoughts are private events in a private mind. The depth tells you that your consciousness is a node in the most fundamental information field in the universe. Those are not the same reality. Let's go deeper. There's a concept in quantum mechanics called coherence. It's the state in which quantum systems are aligned, vibrating together, in phase with each other, behaving as a unified whole rather than as a collection of separate parts. Quantum coherence is what makes lasers work. It's what makes superconductors work. It's what makes quantum computing theoretically possible. In a coherent quantum system, the individual parts are not acting independently. They are acting as one. They are entangled. They are, in a very precise physical sense, one thing expressing itself through many parts. The human body, at the quantum level, is a coherent system. The work of biophysicist Fritz Albert Popp demonstrated that living cells emit and absorb what he called biophotons, coherent light, photons that are organized in a way that is characteristic of quantum coherence, rather than random thermal emission. The cells of the body are communicating through light, through coherent quantum light that operates at the level of the zero-point field. The body is not just a chemical machine. It is a quantum coherent system that is in constant communication with itself and, through the field, with everything around it. Mei-Wan Ho, the biophysicist, described the living organism as a quantum jazz improvisation. A coherent, dynamic, self-organizing system that is in constant, instantaneous, non-local communication with all of its parts simultaneously. Not through slow chemical signaling, through quantum coherence. Through the field. The body is not a machine running on chemistry. The body is a quantum instrument playing in the zero-point field. And when that instrument is tuned, when the coherence of the system is high, when the noise is reduced and the signal is clear, something remarkable happens. The interaction between the body-mind system and the zero-point field changes. The responsiveness increases. The information exchange deepens. The reality that the coherent system is embedded in begins to reflect the coherence back. This is the mechanism. This is the how. This is the layer beneath the layer that explains why one night of genuinely encountering the zero-point field can begin to rewire your reality. Not because you've learned a new belief, because you've changed the coherence of the system that is in relationship with the field. Because the instrument has been tuned. And a tuned instrument in a responsive field produces different music than a detuned one. But there's a layer beneath that. Because coherence is not just a physical state. It is an experiential state. You know what coherence feels like. You've felt it. The moments when everything seems to click. When you are fully present, fully alive, fully aligned with what you're doing and who you are. When the noise in your mind quiets and something clearer, something more fundamental comes through. When you feel not like a separate self, navigating a hostile world, but like an expression of something larger, something that knows what it's doing, something that is moving through you rather than being generated by you. Those moments are not accidents. They are not random gifts. They are moments of quantum coherence. Moments when the instrument of your body-mind system aligns with the field. when the veil between your surface experience and the deeper reality of the zero-point field becomes thin enough to feel through. And here's what the ancient traditions knew that quantum mechanics is only now beginning to articulate. Those moments of coherence can be cultivated. They are not just things that happen to you. They are states you can move toward, practices that generate them, ways of being that sustain them. And when you sustain coherence long enough, when you hold the alignment between your awareness and the field long enough, the rewiring that happens is not metaphorical, it is literal. The neural architecture of the brain changes. The quantum coherence of the body's information systems deepens. The relationship between your consciousness and the zero-point field becomes more direct, more clear, more responsive. One night. That's how long it takes to begin. Not to complete the journey, to begin it. To make the first genuine contact with the field beneath the surface of your experience. To feel, even once, what it is like to touch the ground state of reality with your awareness. Because once you've felt it, you can find it again. And each time you find it, the path back becomes clearer, the veil becomes thinner, the rewiring deepens. Let's talk about what that actually means. Let's talk about what rewiring looks like from the inside. There's a layer of your experience that you probably think of as just the way things are. The baseline texture of your daily life. The background feeling of being you in this particular reality. The default setting of your perception. And most people, most of the time, never question this layer. They treat it as given, as fixed, as the nature of reality, rather than as a particular relationship with reality that has been shaped by particular habits of attention, particular patterns of thought, particular assumptions about what is possible and what is not. But this layer is not fixed. It is not the nature of reality. It is the surface of your relationship with reality. And beneath it is a different relationship, a deeper one. One in which the zero-point field is not background noise, but living presence. One in which the apparent solidity of the world is recognized as the surface it actually is. One in which the responsiveness of the field to awareness is not a theory, but a direct, lived, ongoing experience. The rewiring is the shift from the surface relationship to the deeper one. And it happens not through effort, but through recognition. Not through forcing a new belief, but through seeing what was always there. The field was always there. Your relationship with it was always active. You were always in the quantum conversation with the ground state of reality. You just weren't aware of it, and awareness changes everything. Because the observer changes what is observed, and when the observer becomes aware of the field, the relationship with the field changes. The conversation deepens, the responsiveness increases. This is why one night can be enough to begin, not because you'll master anything in one night, but because recognition doesn't require mastery. It requires only that you look beneath the surface, beneath the layer you've been accepting as the whole story, and see what's actually there. And once you've seen it, you cannot unsee it. The veil doesn't come back. The layer you've peeled back doesn't reattach. the recognition is permanent. And from that recognition, the rewiring begins. Now let's go to the practice. Let's go to the part where this stops being a transmission about the field and becomes a direct encounter with it. Because here's what I want you to understand. The 0-point field is not somewhere else. It is not a place you have to travel to or a state you have to achieve. It is the ground of the present moment. It is what's here right now, beneath the surface of your current experience, beneath the thoughts running in the background of your mind, beneath the physical sensations of your body, beneath the sounds in the room around you, beneath all of it, as the substrate that makes all of it possible, is the field. And you can touch it right now, not with your hands, with your awareness, with the part of you that is capable of going beneath the surface of experience and resting in the ground of it, the part of you that the ancient traditions called the witness, the observer, the pure awareness that is aware of experience without being identical to it. Here's how this works. Not as instruction, as invitation. Notice right now that you are aware. Not what you are aware of. Not the content of your experience. The fact of awareness itself. The simple, undeniable, immediate fact that there is something here that knows it is here. That there is an awareness present in this moment. Notice that awareness, not from the outside, from the inside. Be the awareness that is aware of itself. Now notice that this awareness is not located in any particular thought. It is not the thought you just had about what you're doing. It is the awareness that noticed the thought. It is prior to the thought. It is beneath the thought. It is the ground in which the thought appeared and from which it arose. Now go one layer deeper. Notice that this awareness is not bounded by the edges of your body. Notice that the awareness that is aware of your body is not itself inside the body. The body is an object in awareness. The awareness is not an object. It is the field in which the object appears. The body is the surface. The awareness is the depth. And the awareness, at its deepest layer, is not personal. It is not yours in the sense of being a private possession. It is the 0-point field expressing itself as the capacity to know. Stay here for a moment. Don't analyze it. Don't name it. Don't try to hold on to it or push it away. Just let the awareness be aware of itself. Just let the ground of being be what it is. Just rest in the layer beneath the surface of your experience. This is the field, not a visualization of the field, not a concept about the field, the actual field, the ground state of your awareness, which is the ground state of the reality you are embedded in. You are touching the 0-point field right now. You have been touching it every moment of your life. You just hadn't recognized it for what it was. Feel what shifts when you see this layer. Feel the difference between looking at the world from the surface and looking at it from this depth. From the surface, the world is a collection of separate objects, including the object you call yourself, moving through time and space in a mechanical dance of cause and effect. From the depth, from the ground of the 0-point field, the world is a single, coherent, responsive field of information and energy, expressing itself in infinite forms. And you are not a separate object within it, but an expression of it. A wave in the ocean, a pattern in the field, a particular way that the ground state of reality has organized itself into the temporary, beautiful, specific form of you. These are not the same reality, and you can feel the difference. Right now, in your body, in the quality of your attention, in the texture of this moment, the surface version feels contracted, separate, effortful. The depth version feels spacious, connected, effortless. Not because nothing is happening, but because what is happening in a field that is on your side. That is, at the deepest layer, what you are. Now let's talk about what this means for the reality you're living in. Let's talk about the mechanism of rewiring. Because here's what happens when you make genuine contact with the 0-point field, even briefly, even just for the moment you just had. The neural patterns in your brain that have been running the surface version of reality, the patterns that generate the experience of separation, limitation, effortfulness, the patterns that keep you oriented to the surface and unable to access the depth, those patterns begin to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but measurably. Neuroplasticity is not a metaphor. The brain changes in response to experience. And the experience of touching the ground state of reality, of resting in the 0-point field even for a moment, is a different experience than the brain has been running on. It creates new patterns, new pathways, new defaults. This is what the contemplative traditions have always known and what neuroscience is now confirming. The practices that the ancient traditions developed for accessing the ground of being, the practices of meditation, of contemplation, of deep presence, of what the Zen tradition calls just sitting, and the Christian mystical tradition calls contemplative prayer, and the Vedantic tradition calls self-inquiry, these practices change the brain. They change the default mode network, the network that generates the experience of a separate self. They change the prefrontal cortex, the region associated with executive function, and the capacity for broad, open awareness. They change the amygdala, the region that generates threat responses and keeps the system locked in survival mode. They change the insula, the region that mediates the sense of embodied presence and the feeling of being connected to something larger than the individual self. These are not vague spiritual effects. They are measurable changes in the physical structure and function of the brain. Changes that alter the baseline experience of being alive. Changes that make the depth more accessible, the surface less totalizing, the field more present in ordinary experience. One night of genuine contact with the 0-point field begins this process. Not because one night is enough to complete the transformation, but because one night is enough to create a new pathway, a new groove in the neural architecture that says this is possible, this is real, this depth exists and I can access it. And once that pathway exists, it can be deepened. Each return to the field strengthens the pathway. Each moment of genuine coherence adds to the foundation. Each time the veil thins and the depth becomes visible, the veil becomes thinner still. The rewiring is not a one-time event. It is a process. But every process has a beginning, and the beginning is recognition. The beginning is tonight. But there's a layer beneath that, because we haven't yet talked about the most radical implication of the zero-point field. The implication that most people, even those who've encountered the field intellectually, even those who've read the physics and studied the ancient traditions, stop before reaching. The implication that lives at the very deepest layer, the core that all the other layers have been concealing. It's this: if the zero-point field is the ground state of all matter, all energy, all information, all of space and time, and if your consciousness is not separate from this field, but is an expression of it, a particular pattern within it, and if the field is responsive to awareness, if observation changes what is observed at the quantum level, then the reality you experience is not a fixed, pre-given, independent thing that you are observing from the outside. It is a co-creation, a dance between the awareness that you are and the field that you are embedded in. A participatory process in which your consciousness is not a passive receiver of reality, but an active participant in its generation. This is what John Wheeler meant by participatory universe. This is what quantum mechanics implies when it says the observer cannot be separated from the observed. This is what the ancient traditions meant when they said that consciousness is not in the universe is in consciousness. The surface version of this idea sounds like solipsism, like the claim that reality doesn't exist unless you're looking at it. But that's not what the depth version says. The depth version says something much more precise and much more interesting. Reality exists, the field exists, the quantum potential exists. But the specific form that reality takes, the particular way that the field of infinite possibility collapses into the definite experience you're having right now, that is not independent of the awareness that is experiencing it. The form is co-created. The specific reality is a function of the relationship between the field and the consciousness that is in relationship with it. Change the consciousness, change the relationship, and the reality changes. Not all of it, not immediately, not through wishful thinking or positive affirmation, but at the level of the quantum field, at the level of the information substrate of reality. The relationship between your awareness and the ground state of existence is not fixed. It is dynamic. It is responsive. It can be deepened, it can be clarified, it can be made more coherent. And as it becomes more coherent, as the relationship between your consciousness and the zero-point field becomes more direct and more clear, the reality that emerges from that relationship begins to reflect the depth rather than just the surface. This is what the mystics were pointing at when they talked about reality responding to the awakened one. Not magic, not supernatural intervention. The natural consequence of a consciousness that has made genuine contact with the ground state of reality. A consciousness that is no longer operating only at the surface, but is drawing from the depth. A consciousness that is in coherent relationship with the field from which all things arise. Such a consciousness does not impose its will on reality. It aligns with the deeper intelligence of the field, and reality which is the field expressing itself, responds to that alignment. Hidden in plain sight. The mechanism has always been there. The field has always been there. The responsiveness has always been there. The only thing that was missing was the awareness to see it. Let me show you something else. Let me tell you about another moment. Another layer being lifted. There was a man named Elias. He was a builder. Not metaphorically, literally. He built things with his hands, structures. He had been building things since he was a child, and he had developed, over decades of work, an intuitive relationship with materials. He could look at a piece of wood and know how it would behave. He could feel the stress in a structure before any measurement confirmed it. He had what his colleagues called an instinct, a feel for things, and he had always thought of this as experience, as pattern recognition, as the accumulated knowledge of thousands of hours of working with materials. And then one day, working on a restoration project in an old building, he found himself in a room that had been sealed for decades, a room that no one had entered in a very long time. And in that room, in the particular quality of the silence and the stillness and the dust-filtered light, he felt something he had no category for. He felt the room, not as a visual or acoustic experience, as a field, as a presence, as a space that was somehow still holding the energy of everything that had happened in it. The conversations, the decisions, the moments of fear and joy and ordinary Tuesday afternoons. The room was not empty. The space was not neutral. It was saturated with something. He stood there for a long time, and then he understood something he had never understood before about his own instinct, his feel for materials, his ability to sense the stress in a structure, his intuition about how things would behave. This was not just pattern recognition from experience. It was something more fundamental. He was reading the field. He was in relationship with the quantum information that the materials and the space were embedded in. His body, tuned by decades of practice to be sensitive to the properties of physical structures, had become a quantum instrument. He was receiving information from the zero-point field and interpreting it through the vocabulary of his craft. The instinct had always been the field. He just hadn't known what he was touching. And you have felt this too. You have had moments of knowing that you couldn't explain, moments of sensing something before you had any rational basis for sensing it, moments of feeling a connection that had no logical cause, moments of being in the right place at the right time, in a way that felt too precise to be random. These were not accidents. These were not wishful thinking. These were moments of coherence, moments when the instrument of your body-mind system aligned with the field, and the field communicated directly. Moments when the veil was thin and the depth was speaking. You've always sensed there was more beneath the surface. You were right. Think about that for a moment. Was there a time when a pattern in your life dissolved the moment you looked directly at it, or a truth revealed itself that had been hidden in plain sight all along? Share it in the comments. These moments of collective recognition are how the field becomes visible to more people at once. Now let's talk about the specific quality of awareness that makes the field most accessible. because this is the practical heart of everything we've been exploring. This is the layer that turns the zero-point field from a fascinating concept into a living, active, transformative presence in your daily experience. The quality of awareness that makes the field accessible is not effort. It is not concentration in the sense of forcing the mind to focus. It is not visualization, not positive thinking, not the construction of a particular mental image or emotional state. All of those are surface activities. They happen at the level of the content of consciousness, not at the level of the ground of consciousness. And the zero-point field is the ground, not the content. The quality of awareness that makes the field accessible is what the contemplative traditions call open awareness, choiceless awareness. The awareness that is not directed toward any particular object, but is simply present, open, receptive, and still. The awareness that has released its grip on the surface and allowed itself to rest in the depth. The awareness that is not doing anything but being, not performing presence, but inhabiting it, not generating a state, but discovering the state that was always already there beneath every state you've ever been in. This is what the Zen tradition calls beginner's mind. The mind that approaches each moment without the overlay of what it already knows, without the preconceptions and assumptions that turn direct experience into a confirmation of existing beliefs. The mind that is genuinely open to what is actually here, beneath the story about what is here. The mind that can look at the surface and see the depth behind it simultaneously. This is what the Tibetan tradition calls Rigpa, the naked awareness that is the ground of all experience, the awareness that is prior to thought, prior to perception, prior to the sense of a separate self, the awareness that is, at its deepest layer, identical with the ground state of reality itself. Not a personal awareness looking at an impersonal field. The field being aware of itself through the temporary form of a particular human consciousness. This is what quantum mechanics calls the observer. Not the personal self with its preferences and fears and histories. The pure observing function. The awareness that is present before any particular content arises. The witness that is always already here, beneath every experience you've ever had, as the ground of all experience. And here's the practice. Here's the invitation that makes this real rather than theoretical. Right now, in this moment, release the grip on what you think is happening. Release the interpretation. Release the story about what this is and what it means and where it's going. Not permanently, not as a philosophy, just for this moment. Just long enough to feel what's here when the story is quiet. What's here when the story is quiet is the field. What's here when the interpretation is released is the ground state. What's here when the surface layer of meaning-making is temporarily still is the zero-point field, present and alive and responsive, exactly as it has always been, exactly as it will always be, the substrate of every moment you have ever lived and every moment you will ever live. Feel it now, not as a concept, as a direct experience. the aliveness of this moment before you name it, the presence of this space before you describe it, the intelligence of this field before you interpret it. This is what you are. This is what reality is. This is the layer beneath the surface of everything. And now, from this depth, from this ground, notice what happens to the surface. Notice that the surface doesn't disappear. The room is still there. The sounds are still there. The thoughts are still there. But they're different now. They're lighter, more transparent, more obviously what they are, which is forms arising in a field, waves on an ocean, patterns in a medium that is vaster and deeper and more fundamental than any pattern it contains. This is the shift. This is what rewiring feels like from the inside. Not a dramatic transformation of external circumstances. A permanent change in the relationship between your awareness and the ground of reality. A deepening of perception that makes the surface visible as surface, rather than as the whole of what is. A thinning of the veil that allows the depth to be present in ordinary experience. Not instead of ordinary experience, beneath it, as its ground, as what makes it possible. The veil is thinner than you think, and now you can see through it. Let's talk about what changes when this shift takes hold. Let's talk about the specific ways that the rewiring of your relationship with the 0-point field changes the reality you experience. Because this is not abstract, this is not theoretical, this has specific, concrete, lived implications that show up in the texture of your daily life. The first thing that changes is your relationship with time. On the surface, time is a river that carries you from past to future. You are always either looking back at what was or forward at what might be. The present moment is a thin knife edge between a past you can't change and a future you can't control. This is the surface experience of time, and it generates a particular kind of anxiety, a particular kind of restlessness, a particular kind of feeling that you are always slightly behind, always slightly late, always missing the moment you're actually in. But the 0-point field exists outside of time as you experience it on the surface. The quantum vacuum is not in time the way that objects are in time. It is the ground from which the experience of time arises. And when your awareness rests in the field, when you touch the ground state of reality, the relationship with time changes. The present moment expands. The knife edge becomes a spacious opening. The anxiety of being carried by the river dissolves into the stillness of being the water itself, not a thing in time, the ground from which time arises. This is not a spiritual metaphor. This is a description of a change in the actual experience of consciousness that occurs when the brain shifts from its default surface mode, the mode that generates the sense of a separate self moving through time, to the deeper mode of open, field-connected awareness. The neuroscience of meditation has documented this shift extensively. The default mode network quiets. The sense of a separate self doing things in time loosens. the present moment becomes more vivid, more real, more spacious. Time feels different because the relationship with the ground of time has changed. The second thing that changes is your relationship with possibility. On the surface, possibility is constrained by probability. What is likely to happen is a function of what has happened before, of the patterns and habits and circumstances that have been established. The future is an extrapolation of the past. What you can expect is more or less what you've gotten. The field of possibility is narrow, defined by the grooves that have been worn into your reality by repetition and assumption. But the zero-point field is the field of quantum possibility. It is the ground from which all possibilities arise before any particular possibility is realized. It is the superposition state before the wave function collapses. It is the infinite potential before any particular form is taken. And when your awareness is in relationship with this field, the field of possibility in your experience expands. Not because you've changed your beliefs about what's possible, because you've made contact with the layer beneath the beliefs, the layer where all possibilities exist simultaneously, and the particular reality you experience is not yet determined. This is what the ancient traditions meant when they said that the awakened consciousness creates its own reality. Not through magical thinking, through the expansion of the field of possibility that occurs when awareness rests in the ground state rather than being locked in the surface patterns of what has always been. The quantum field of infinite possibility is not a metaphor. It is the actual substrate of reality. And when your relationship with it deepens, when the coherence between your consciousness and the field increases, the range of what can emerge from that field in your experience expands. The third thing that changes is your relationship with other people. On the surface, other people are separate objects moving through the same space you're moving through. They have their own interior worlds, their own motivations, their own realities that are fundamentally opaque to you. Connection is something you build through communication, through shared experience, through the slow accumulation of trust. Loneliness is the default state, and connection is the exception. But beneath the surface, beneath the layer of separate selves navigating separate realities, there is the zero-point field, the same field, the ground state that is not separate for you and separate for the person across from you, the same field that underlies your consciousness and their consciousness, the same quantum vacuum that is the substrate of both of your realities. And at that level, the level of the field, there is no separation. There is not your field and their field. There is the field, one field, the ground of all experience, the quantum information medium that connects all things. This is what the ancient traditions meant by the unity of all being. Not a poetic sentiment, a description of the actual structure of reality at the level of the quantum field. The separateness is the surface, the unity is the depth. And when your awareness rests in the depth, when you touch the ground state of reality, the connection to other people is not something you have to build. It is something you recognize, something that was always already there, beneath the surface of the apparent separation. And this recognition changes the quality of every interaction, not because you've decided to be more compassionate or more open, because you've seen the layer beneath the surface of the interaction. because you've touched the ground that you and the other person share, because the veil between your consciousness and theirs has thinned to the point where the connection is visible. And visible connection changes everything. Now let's go to the deepest layer, the layer beneath all the other layers, the one that everything we've been exploring has been leading toward. It's this: you are not a person who has access to the 0-point field. You are not a consciousness that can, under the right conditions, make contact with the ground state of reality. You are not a wave that sometimes gets to touch the ocean. You are the field, expressing itself as a particular, temporary, specific, beautiful form. The form of you. The particular configuration of the quantum vacuum that has organized itself into the body and mind and consciousness and history that you experience as yourself. The surface version of you is the form. The depth version of you is the field, and both are real. Both are you. The form is the surface layer of what you are. The field is the depth. And just as the surface of the ocean is real, even though it is made of the same water as the depths, the form of you is real, even though it is made of the same field as the ground of all reality. This is the deepest layer. This is the core truth that all the other layers were concealing. Not that you have a connection to the field, not that you can access the field under special conditions, but that you are the field, that the separation between your consciousness and the 0-point field is the surface illusion, that at the deepest layer there is no observer and observed, no consciousness and field, no you and reality. There is only the field, aware of itself, through the temporary, specific, irreplaceable form of you. The ancient traditions said this in 1,000 different ways. Tattavam asi, that thou art. The ground of being that you're looking for is the ground of being that is doing the looking. The Tao that you're seeking is the Tao that is moving through you as the seeking. The field that you're trying to make contact with is the field that you already are. The veil between you and the 0-point field is not a barrier to be overcome. It is a membrane of awareness that dissolves the moment you recognize what's on both sides of it, which is you. This is not a belief to adopt, it is a recognition to make, and the recognition, once made, is permanent. Not because you'll never forget it, because the forgetting is itself a surface event. Beneath the forgetting, the recognition remains. The depth doesn't go away when you return to the surface. The field doesn't disappear when you stop being aware of it. It is always there. Always the ground, always the truth of what you are. And each time you return to it, each time the surface quiets and the depth becomes visible, the recognition deepens. The rewiring advances, the veil thins further. What has been revealed cannot be rehidden. Let's talk about what you do with this. Let's talk about the integration. Because the deepest layer, the recognition that you are the field, is not something you can maintain in every moment of ordinary life. You will return to the surface. You will get caught in the patterns and pressures and demands of the world as it presents itself on the surface. You will forget, temporarily, what you know at the depth. And that's not a failure. That's not a falling away from the truth. That's the natural rhythm of a consciousness that is simultaneously a form and the field. That is simultaneously a wave and the ocean. The integration is not the permanent maintenance of the deepest state. The integration is the carrying of the depth into the surface, the bringing of the field awareness into ordinary experience, the allowing of the recognition to color the way you move through the world, even when you're not actively resting in the ground state. The letting of the 0-point field be a living presence in your daily life, not just a state you access in meditation or in moments of stillness, but a background reality that informs everything you do and see and experience. How does this work in practice? What does it actually look like to carry the depth into the surface? It looks like pausing. In the middle of an ordinary moment, in the middle of a conversation, or a task or a decision, pausing long enough to drop below the surface of the moment and touch the ground. Not for a long time. A breath, a moment of stillness, long enough to remember what's beneath the surface, long enough to let the field be present in the moment, rather than just the surface of the moment. It looks like curiosity, the curiosity of the beginner's mind that approaches each moment as if it has a depth that hasn't been explored yet. The curiosity that asks, beneath the surface of what I'm experiencing right now, what is actually here? What layer haven't I reached yet? What is the field doing in this moment that I haven't noticed? It looks like trust. The particular quality of trust that comes from knowing, not believing but knowing from direct experience, that the ground of reality is not hostile to you, that the field from which you arise is not indifferent to your flourishing, that the intelligence that organized itself into the form of you has not abandoned the form it created, that the depth is on your side, not because it has preferences or a personal relationship with you, but because you are the depth. Because what you are at the deepest layer is the same as what the ground of reality is. And the ground of reality tends toward coherence, tends toward complexity, tends toward the emergence of more awareness, more connection, more depth. Tends, in a word, toward what you are. It looks like the willingness to let the surface be the surface, to not mistake the surface for the whole of reality, to hold the forms of your life, your circumstances, your relationships, your challenges, your achievements, lightly, not carelessly, lightly, with the recognition that they are forms in a field, real forms, important forms, but forms, and the field from which they arise is vaster than any form it contains, and the field has more possibilities available than any surface pattern can express. This is the integration principle. The 0-point field is not a destination you visit. It is the ground you stand on. And when you know you're standing on it, when you feel the depth beneath every surface moment of your life, the surface changes. Not because you've changed it, because you've changed your relationship with it. Because you're no longer a surface dweller who occasionally glimpses the depth. You're a depth dweller who moves through the surface with the full awareness of what's beneath it. You are no longer a surface dweller. You see the depth now. Let's bring this home. Let's bring it back to where we started, but from the other side. From the depth looking at the surface rather than the surface looking toward the depth. We started with what you thought you knew. The solid, fixed, mechanical world of matter and space and time. The world that was given to you as the complete picture of reality. The world that was presented as the whole truth, rather than the thinnest surface of what's actually happening. We went beneath that surface and found the quantum world. The world of probability waves and superposition and entanglement and the measurement problem. The world where the solid gives way to the probabilistic, where the fixed gives way to the potential, where the mechanical gives way to something that looks more like intelligence than machinery. We went beneath that and found the 0-point field, the ground state of all matter and energy and information, the field that permeates all of space, that underlies all of matter, that persists even when everything else has been removed, the field that is not empty but full, not nothing but the ground of everything. We went beneath that and found the ancient maps, the traditions that had been pointing at this field for thousands of years, long before instruments existed to confirm it. The Akasha, the Tao, the Ein Sof, the All. The ground of being that every tradition that ever looked deeply enough found waiting beneath the surface of everything. We went beneath that and found the responsiveness. The discovery that the field is not indifferent to awareness. That observation changes the quantum system. That the relationship between consciousness and the ground state of reality is not one way. That the field responds, that the depth is alive to the surface in a way that the surface has never been alive to the depth. We went beneath that and found coherence, the mechanism by which the relationship between consciousness and field deepens, the quantum coherence of the living body. The brain's capacity to change in response to the experience of touching the field. The way that one genuine contact with the ground state creates a pathway that can be deepened and strengthened over time. We went beneath that and found the participatory universe. The recognition that reality is not a fixed, pre-given thing that you observe from the outside, but a co-creation, a dance between the awareness that you are and the field that you are embedded in. That the specific reality you experience is a function of the relationship between your consciousness and the 0-point field. And that as that relationship deepens, the reality that emerges from it changes. And then we went to the deepest layer, the core truth that all the other layers were concealing, that you are not a person who has access to the field. You are the field. The separation was the surface. The unity is the depth, and the depth was always there, waiting for your awareness to look deep enough to find it. Welcome to what was always beneath everything. This is what the 0-point field means, not as a physics concept, as a lived reality, as the ground of your experience, as the truth of what you are. as the mechanism by which one night of genuine contact, one night of listening beneath the surface of your experience, one night of letting the veil thin enough to see what's on the other side of it, can begin to rewire the reality you're living in. Not because you've learned something new, because you've recognized something ancient, something that was always there, something that was always the ground of every moment you've ever lived, something that needed only your awareness to become visible. And now that it's visible, now that the layer has been lifted and the depth is in view, it cannot be hidden again. The veil is thinner than you think, and now you can see through it. Something in you has always known the surface isn't the whole truth. Something in you has always sensed that beneath the solid, fixed, mechanical world you were handed as the complete picture of reality, there was something more, something deeper, something more alive, more responsive, more intelligent, more fundamentally real than the surface layer that was presented as the whole story. That something was accurate perception. That something was the field, calling to itself. The depth of you, recognizing the depth of reality. The 0 point field in your consciousness, resonating with the 0 point field that underlies all of existence. You were right. There is more. There is always more. The layers go deeper than any single transmission can reach. The field is vaster than any description of it can contain. The depth of reality is not something that can be fully mapped in one night or one lifetime or one tradition or one discipline. It is infinite. It is the infinite. And the exploration of it is not a project that ends. It is a way of being that begins. It begins with recognition. It begins with the moment the surface is seen as surface. It begins with the first genuine contact with the ground state of reality. It begins with one night of listening beneath the noise of the surface world to the signal that has always been there, broadcasting from the 0 point field, from the ground of all existence, from the depth of what you are. Tonight was that night. The rewiring has begun. Not because you were given a system or a technique or a belief, because you looked beneath the surface, because you followed the layers down, because you let the veil thin enough to see what was on the other side of it, because you were ready. And readiness is not something that happens to you. It is something you are. It is the field in you, recognizing itself in the field of reality. It is the depth calling to the depth. It is the 0 point field becoming aware of itself through the particular, temporary, beautiful, irreplaceable form of you. This was always there. You just hadn't looked deep enough yet. Now you have. And what has been seen cannot be unseen. What has been recognized cannot be forgotten at the level where it matters. What has been touched even once can be touched again, and again, and each time the contact deepens. The coherence increases. The relationship between your consciousness and the ground state of reality becomes more direct, more clear, more alive. The surface becomes more transparent. The depth becomes more present. The veil becomes thinner. This is the path. Not a path you walk to get somewhere else, a path you walk to go deeper into where you already are, deeper into the ground of the present moment, deeper into the field that underlies every experience, deeper into the truth of what you are, which is what reality is, which is what the 0-point field is, which is the infinite, responsive, intelligent ground of all existence, aware of itself through you. Welcome to the depth. Welcome to what was always beneath everything. Welcome to the 0-point field, not as a concept, but as a living, present, accessible reality that is the ground of every moment you will ever live from this one forward. The transmission is complete. The veil has lifted. The layer has been peeled back. And now it's your turn. Go into the comments and share what you found, not what you understood, what you felt, what shifted, what layer became visible that you hadn't seen before, what the depth felt like when you touched it. Drop one word that describes what you found beneath the surface tonight, or tell us the moment in this transmission when the veil thinned for you, when the layer lifted and something became visible that had been hidden. We are building something here together, a community of depth seekers, a gathering of people who refuse to stop at the surface, who know that what you see is never all there is, who are willing to keep peeling back the layers until they reach the core, until they reach the ground, until they reach the field that was always there, waiting for awareness to find it. You are not alone in this exploration. Every person who has ever looked beneath the surface, in every tradition, in every century, in every corner of the world, is part of this community. The mystics and the physicists and the poets and the practitioners and the quiet ones who sat in rooms alone and felt the field and didn't have a name for it. They are all here, in the depth, in the field, in the ground of being that we share. And if someone in your life is ready to see beneath the surface, share this with them. Not as a recommendation, as a gift, the gift of the depth, the gift of the layer beneath the layer, the gift of the veil lifting. When you share this with someone who is ready, you are not just passing along a video. You are giving them access to a layer they may have sensed but couldn't reach alone. You are creating a shared depth between two fields of awareness. And that shared recognition, two people seeing the same hidden layer at the same time, strengthens the collective capacity to see beneath the surface of reality. The veil thins for both of you, because the veil is thinner than anyone thinks. And once you've seen through it, you want everyone you love to see through it too. If this transmission has moved something in you, return to it in a moment of stillness, in the quiet of early morning before the surface noise begins, or in the space just before sleep when the layers are most permeable. The field speaks most clearly when the surface is quietest, and each time you return, a different layer will be waiting. Stay with the field tonight. In the quiet before sleep, in the space between waking and dreaming, let the awareness rest in the ground state. Let the 0-point field be present. Let the depth be the last thing you touch before consciousness dissolves into sleep. And notice what you wake up to tomorrow. Notice whether the surface looks different when you're looking at it from the depth. Notice whether the world you return to in the morning has a different quality, a different texture, a different aliveness to it. It will, because the rewiring has begun. And the field that underlies your reality is already responding to the awareness that has finally seen it for what it is. What has been revealed cannot be rehidden. You are no longer a surface dweller. You see the depth now,